Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am actually going to talk to you today about ketones. My name is Madeline Charahombe, and I am a neurologist. I am a child neurologist, and so I have been using ketones in my practice for treating children with epilepsy, as you know. And so, in terms of basically where these ketones came from, so ketones are a breakdown product of fat. And it was discovered basically in the 1900s by a young physician that when children came in with intractable epilepsy, meaning seizures that just wouldn't stop on their own, when he put them into a fasting mode or into ketosis, he was able to stop or reduce the amount of seizures. So this was revolutionary. But actually, when you do more research, it goes all the way back to the Bible, where in the Bible, there was description of children that would have epilepsy and fits, as they would call them, and they would undergo some fasting and prayer, which basically put them in ketosis, and their seizures would go away. So this is a long known phenomenon. And so it's not a new fad, it's actually a real thing, and it's been there for thousands of years. So what ketones are a breakdown product of fat. And so there's three types of ketones. And for the intents and purposes of this basic discussion, I'll just call them all ketones, which are just these breakdown products of fat. And so when I talk to people, they're always shocked when I say, you've actually been in ketosis before. And they're like, really? When? And the most common time that people go into ketosis is at birth. So if you remember when you had a baby, or perhaps you have a friend who had a baby, or if you've got that good memory, maybe you remember being a baby. And the baby oftentimes in that first day, sometimes up to a week of life, doesn't have that milk come in when the baby is nursing. And so when the mother is able to produce breast milk, the first type of milk she produces is called colostrum. If you've ever seen colostrum, it is this fatty, thick milk. But that's exceptionally important and exceptionally great for kids and for brains in kids, because the brain utilizes this fatty energy and it becomes this efficient way for survival as early as infancy. Other times that you may have fasted is when you have been fasting for religious purposes. So there's lots of religions across the world that use fasting as a part of their process or as a part of their religion. And when you fast, you basically force your body to get rid of all of the glucose and glycogen that's in your system, and you start to break down fat and cause yourself to be in ketosis. So that may have been another time when you've been in ketosis and hadn't known it. Well, if you've never been a baby and perhaps you've never fasted for religious purposes, another time may be because you were fasting for a procedure, or you were fasting because your doctor asked you to get some blood work for lipids, for example. So when you are fasting, what happens is that your body tries to suck up and use all of the glucose in the blood system. Then next, it goes to the liver and tries to break down all of the glycogen, and then goes to your muscle and breaks down all of the glycogen. And so all the glucose is spent. And then you end up basically using ketones. And so what's great about ketones is that they have an amazing efficiency in the brain. As you know, our brains are made of 60% fat. And so fat absorbing fat is very efficient. If you remember from your days in biology, things traveling across fat is very difficult if it's dissolved in water, but fat across fat is very efficient. So I think this is a really important tool as you think about how ketosis works. And so in the brain, ketones do three things. Number one, they increase the blood flow. And that's fantastic, because when your brain is in math mode or you're trying to calculate some numbers, sure helps to have a lot more blood flowing through it. The other thing that it does is that it increases and improves the oxygenation and oxidation within your brain. So it's an antioxidant, which is so important, because when you think about brain health, there's so many things that we put into our system that are inflammatory. And inflammatory things cause scar damage, plaque deposition. But when you have an antioxidant, it actually removes it and it makes things in the brain seem very nice and pretty. So that's a really important component to ketones. And then the last thing that ketones do is that they're a fast source of energy. So if your brain is really having a hard time with, focusing and thinking, well, using ketones is a very, very effective way to use energy or to spend energy within your brain. So what people will tell you when they fast is that, oh my gosh, I feel so focused. I feel as if I just am on fire. My brain is finally thinking. That brain fog that some of us have felt starts to lift off. So it's amazing that for something that I used for so many years in kids, I had never thought about thinking about using it in other people except people with epilepsy. And when parents would tell me that, oh my goodness, my kid's seizures are so much better on this diet, I thought the diet is what made them feel better in terms of having less seizures, not recognizing that the effects of the actual ketones were having better focus. And so children were able to come off some of the ADHD types of medications. They were able to have a better mood. And so I was, pretty impressed when I finally tried it for myself and recognized that, wow, I have the same benefits, and yet I don't even have epilepsy. So it doesn't have to be that you have epilepsy to be on such a diet. But one of the barriers to this diet, I will say, is people often find it difficult to do because it has a lot of practical steps and a lot of it involves fat. I will say that a lot of people I've met think that ketogenic diet or ketones is a low carb diet. And they will describe to me what they're doing. And it sounds more like the Atkins diet, which is not the same thing. Atkins diet really talks about eating more protein. And as you know, protein breaks down to glucose. So you're not going to get ketogenesis or ketones when you eat an Atkins diet. But when you eat a diet that is high in fat, then you're going to be able to get into ketosis. And so when you think about when you go to sleep, and hopefully you haven't eaten anything too late into the night, by the time you wake up in the morning, your body is in a mild form of ketosis because you've been fasting and your body's been pulling and using all of that, sugar that's in your system. And the longer you fast, the more you are in ketosis. And so people will talk about intermittent fasting as a way to sort of help reduce fat in their bodies. So these are all kind of different ways that I think all of us have probably done some form of ketogenic diet, as it were, or had ketones in their system without even knowing it. And so I'm hoping that this has answered a lot of the questions that I have had people ask me, and certainly reach out to me and I will be happy to explain if there's anything that you still have questions about. And if you are planning to be on such a diet, I would advise that you do it with somebody that knows what the diet is. A professional like a nutritionist could assist you because it's not for everybody. And so hopefully you guys are having a fantastic weekend, and I am here to answer any questions if you have any. Thanks for joining, Sarah. I see you there. Take care.